November 22nd, 1974, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Minus 18,500 voices packed the Tulsa Fairgrounds Coliseum, buzzing with anticipation. Then, mid-song, Elvis Presley did the unthinkable. He handed his gleaming Gibson J200 to a teenage fan trembling in the aisle. Dead silent at first, then the crowd erupted, a roar that would echo through legend. The evening air inside the Tulsa Fairgrounds Coliseum was thick with anticipation, the scent of popcorn and cigarettes weaving through the packed aisles. Stage lights flickered against a sea of 18,500 faces, a mosaic of excitement, impatience, and awe. The band tuned their instruments, bass thudding gently against the wooden floor, a vibration that pulsed through the crowd. Stage manager Tommy Hayes checked his clipboard one last time, anxious about timing, while roadie Lenny Carter adjusted the cables with a meticulous care born from years of touring with the King. Then, the sparkle of rhinestones cut through the dim stage fog. Elvis Presley emerged, clad in a shimmering jumpsuit that caught every light, his presence commanding and intimate at once. The audience gasped, some rising to their feet, a collective inhalation that made the arena feel alive, as if breathing as one. He waved briefly, acknowledging the roar, then picked up his guitar and began strumming the opening chords to a song the crowd had already memorized. Yet the energy suggested this night would be different. Fans clutched programs and handwritten notes, hoping for a glance, a smile, or, in some daring cases, a personal connection. And then, in the corner of the left aisle, a lone teenager appeared, jeans frayed, shoes scuffed, clutching a tattered notebook as if it were a talisman. His eyes never left the stage, wide and unblinking, awe radiating from his every movement. Elvis's gaze swept the crowd, scanning, and then, almost imperceptibly, it paused, landing on the boy. For a moment, the lights and noise seemed to fade, the hum of electricity hanging heavy in the air. The crowd continued cheering, but a ripple of tension began to form, subtle, almost invisible. The teen's trembling hands and quivering lip did not go unnoticed by the nearby security, nor by the band members who exchanged silent glances. Tommy Hayes shifted, sensing the unspoken question. Would this moment remain ordinary, or shift into legend? Elvis strummed a chord, letting it linger. The note hung like a suspended heartbeat. Lenny Carter, standing at the side of the stage, caught the teen's eye, and for a moment, the world seemed to contract into the space between performer and fan. The stage lights flickered again, casting long shadows over the glittering jumpsuit, the worn shoes, and the anticipation that crackled like static in the Coliseum. Every person, every face, every heartbeat became part of the living, breathing organism that was this crowd. Have you ever locked eyes with someone and felt the world shrink to just that single, perfect moment? Then, a subtle, almost invisible shift. Elvis's fingers danced over the strings, the music weaving around the tension, teasing what was to come. The teen's hand tightened around his notebook, knuckles whitening. The air was electric, every ear straining, every eye searching, every heart caught somewhere between expectation and disbelief. Elvis's eyes held the boy's for one long heartbeat, and in that moment, something extraordinary was about to unfold. Midway through Love Me Tender, the Coliseum shifted. The teenager in the left aisle trembled, lips pressed together to hold back a sob. His eyes shimmered with tears, reflecting the stage lights as if catching fragments of stardust. For a moment, he seemed suspended, caught between reverence and vulnerability, and that fragility drew the eyes of the nearby security team. Two guards moved cautiously toward him, their radios crackling softly, a subtle murmur in the sea of cheers and clapping. The crowd sensed a change before the security team could even speak, murmurs rippling like static across 18,500 hearts. The arena went dead silent for 3 beats, then exploded with tension again, a discordant wave of expectation and uncertainty. People shifted in their seats, craning to see what had caught the king's attention. On stage, Elvis's fingers danced across the guitar strings, producing the soft, haunting melody of the song. But even the music seemed to hesitate under the weight of anticipation. The teenager's worn shoes scraped against the Colosseum floor. His jeans were frayed, notebook crumpled, a stark contrast to the glittering jumpsuit and polished guitars on stage. The visual divide between the performer and the fan became almost palpable, a snapshot of society's extremes, the glitter of fame set against humble longing. And yet, in that tension, a quiet humanity emerged, raw, fragile, and impossible to ignore. Roadie Lenny Carter glanced at Tommy Hayes, his eyebrows knitting in silent concern. "He's about to break," Lenny whispered, almost to himself. Hayes shook his head, unsure whether to intervene or let the moment unfold naturally. Somewhere in the back, a teenage girl clutched a program, whispering to her friend, "Look, he's staring at him." The crowd's energy fluctuated, a tide of excitement and worry, swelling and ebbing as if it was sentient, aware that something unprecedented hung in the balance. Elvis's gaze lingered. He tilted his head, sensing the tension, feeling the unspoken question coursing through the audience. The arena went quiet again, the only sound the soft strum of his guitar, each note a heartbeat in the stillness. Every eye in the Colosseum was drawn to the boy, every mind asking the same question: what would happen next? When have you witnessed a small act threaten chaos, yet reveal something greater? Could hesitation itself become an act of courage? The teenager swallowed, shaking slightly, and the guards paused, uncertainty replacing their training. The hum of tension became a tangible presence, a living pulse in the arena. And then, for a single, perfect moment, time seemed suspended. The music, the crowd, the boy, and Elvis all frozen together, waiting for a decision that could change the night forever. Elvis stopped mid, head tilted, scanning the boy with a look that made the entire Colosseum hold its breath. The air in the Tulsa Fairgrounds Coliseum thickened with expectation. Security moved closer, steps measured, radios whispering into silent ears. The teenager remained frozen, hands clenching his tattered notebook, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. Every person in the left aisle leaned forward, sensing the fragile line between ordinary night and legend. The band paused, the gentle strum of the guitar fading as Elvis's eyes held the boy in a silent dialogue that spoke louder than words. The crowd's murmurs swelled, a wave threatening to crash over the arena. Some cheered instinctively, others gasped, unsure whether to celebrate or remain cautious. The floorboards beneath the fans seemed to vibrate with collective heartbeats. 18,500 souls, aware that something extraordinary teetered on the edge of the familiar. Stage manager Tommy Hayes clutched his clipboard, throat tight, realizing that protocol and perfection meant nothing compared to the humanity unfolding before them. Lenny Carter, ever vigilant, whispered to Hayes, "He's seeing him." Really seeing him. Elvis put down his guitar with deliberate care. The sound of it settling against the stand resonated, filling the dead air with a suspenseful note. He stepped closer to the edge of the stage, each footfall punctuated by the sharp inhale of the audience. For the first time, the spotlight seemed to shrink around him, illuminating not just the performer, but the connection forming in front of thousands. A subtle hush descended, punctuated by the occasional cough, the scrape of a shoe. A breath collectively held. The teenagers swallowed audibly, and security paused, sensing the tension's weight. In that moment, every detail became significant. The shimmer of Elvis's jumpsuit, the worn edges of the teen's notebook, the glint of the Gibson J200 reflecting stage lights. It was a study in contrast, power and humility, fame and yearning, the glittering stage and the humble boy in the aisle. The audience, sensing the gravity, mirrored it. Fans leaned on each other's shoulders, craning for a better view. Feeling the suspense coalesce into almost tactile pressure, a single chord, tentative and soft, echoed from the stage, the resonance filling the space between expectation and disbelief. Elvis's fingers hovered over the strings again, eyes never leaving the boy. The teen's lips trembled, a silent prayer or perhaps a whispered hope. Lenny Carter subtly shifted, signaling to Hayes, who shook his head in disbelief, caught between caution and the realization that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Even the band members glanced toward the edge of the stage, breath held, knowing that whatever happened next would change the night forever. Would you step into the spotlight to change someone's life if it risked losing everything? Could a single choice outweigh years of caution and protocol? The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, yet the space between stage and aisles seemed to contract, each second stretching, bending the perception of time. In the left aisle, the teenager's hands tightened around the notebook, the leather cover crumpled in his grip. The glint of the Gibson J200 caught his eye, and for a moment, reality and possibility collided. The audience sensed the imminence of a decision. The collective breath of 18,500 people held as though it were a single entity, alive and anticipating. Elvis paused, mid-step, a ripple of anticipation moving through the crowd. Lights flickered slightly, the faint hum of electronics mixing with the palpable tension. The arena seemed to lean forward collectively, waiting for the king's choice, the moment of compassion or denial, the action that would define not just a concert, but a story to be retold for decades. Elvis reached out, hand extended, pausing just inches from the boy, and the Colosseum went dead silent, every heart suspended in that heartbeat. Then it happened. Elvis's hand hovered for a heartbeat, inches from the trembling teenager. The Colosseum went dead silent, the hum of anticipation so thick it could be felt in the chest. 18,500 fans collectively leaned forward, straining to see what would unfold. Every eye was fixed on the narrow aisle where hope, fear, and reverence collided. In that moment, the glittering jumpsuit, the polished guitar, and the boy's frayed jeans became symbols in a story that would etch itself into legend. With a gentle smile, Elvis lifted the Gibson J200 and placed it carefully into the teenager's outstretched hands. The boy gasped, disbelief breaking across his face, fingers trembling as they closed around the instrument. For 3 suspended beats, the arena held its breath, the faint strum of a chord, swallowed by silence, signaling the bridge between hesitation and human connection. It was not just an act of generosity. It was a deliberate choice to bend the rules of expectation in favor of compassion that the crowd could not contain itself any longer. A wave of sound erupted, cheers, whistles, stomps, clapping, rising in crescendos that bounced off the walls of the Colosseum. The teen's eyes welled with tears, glimmering under the bright stage lights. His fingers brushed across the strings tentatively, producing a soft, trembling note. Elvis, ever the showman, yet grounded in humanity, strummed a single chord, letting the sound resonate through the arena like a heartbeat, a signal that this was no ordinary night. Short, punchy sentences punctuated the moment. Play it now, let it sing. Each phrase lingered in the audience's imagination, punctuating the shift from awe to catharsis. Fans began shouting the teen's name, scarves and hats thrown toward the stage, the energy moving like ripples across a pond, joining the performer and fan in a shared moment of wonder. Lenny Carter and Tommy Hayes exchanged stunned looks. Security had halted, the band members clapped, and the collective consciousness of 18,500 people vibrated with the recognition that they had just witnessed something extraordinary. Could a single act of courage and kindness ripple beyond a moment, touching more lives than one could imagine? Have you ever seen someone's choice change the atmosphere of an entire room, a community, even a city? For a brief moment, the Colosseum felt alive in a new way. Every face, every cheer, every gasp contributed to the living narrative unfolding on that stage. The teenager, still trembling, strummed another chord, louder this time, and the crowd followed every clap, every cheer merging with the music, becoming a co-performer in the act of collective joy. The glittering strings hummed, and in that resonance, the humanity of the moment cemented itself. Could this single act ripple beyond the night, changing not just a boy's life, but the spirit of everyone who witnessed it? The moment the Gibson J200 rested in the teenager's hands, the Colosseum transformed. The roar of 18,500 voices became a singular, almost sacred chorus, each person contributing to a wave of collective awe and joy. Fans leaned toward the stage, hats and scarves flying through the air, tossed not as distractions but as gifts, tokens of solidarity and shared wonder. The arena's atmosphere shifted from anticipation to communal celebration. Every heartbeat synchronized with the trembling chords strummed by the boy. Lenny Carter, still at the side of the stage, handed the teenager a signed set, a gesture as small as it was profound, binding him to the memory of the night. Stage manager Tommy Hayes clapped alongside the band, his usual meticulous professionalism melting into unrestrained delight. Each side character became part of the moment, witnesses and participants in an act that transcended music, fame, or expectation. The boy's initial fear gradually gave way to tentative joy. His fingers found confidence on the strings, producing chords that resonated not just in the physical space of the Colosseum, but in the hearts of everyone present. The audience became co-creators in the unfolding drama. They clapped in rhythm, chanting the teenager's name, their voices merging with the vibrations of the guitar. The energy was no longer confined to the stage. It flowed through the aisles, rising from the crowd in waves, an unspoken affirmation that compassion had replaced protocol. Every cheer, whistle, and stomp acted as an amplifier for kindness, turning a single act into a communal catharsis. How often do we allow a community to witness kindness instead of conflict? When has generosity been contagious in your own life? Reporters in the press pit scrambled to capture the iconic moment, cameras clicking, microphones picking up the trembling chords, scribes feverishly documenting what would become legendary. Bootleggers recorded hurriedly, knowing that these 3 minutes could ripple beyond the night, traveling across towns, newspapers, and radio waves. Every artifact of the evening, the guitar, the scarves, the signed set list became a tangible symbol of generosity and connection. Even band members, seasoned performers accustomed to the predictable applause, paused to watch. Their smiles, small but genuine, mirrored the collective realization that this night had shifted. The Colosseum was no longer just a venue. It had become a living testament to the power of human empathy. The teenager strummed another chord, more confident now, and the crowd followed, clapping in rhythm, creating a symphony of shared humanity. The transformation was complete. The arena, once just a space for performance, had become a community united in admiration, compassion, and awe. Each person present had been touched by the spontaneity of Elvis's choice, and through it the teenager was no longer alone. He was elevated, supported by the collective spirit of thousands. The ripple effect of that moment, though subtle at first, was unmistakable, and it would carry beyond the Colosseum walls. Reporters and fans alike would later recount the scene endlessly. But one question lingered: who was this teenager? And how would his life forever bear the mark of this night? In the weeks following November 22nd, 1974, the story of the teenager and Elvis's guitar spread like wildfire. Bootlegs of the Tulsa concert circulated among fans, each recording capturing the trembling chord, the hush of the arena, and the eruption of collective joy. Letters poured in, handwritten and typed, from fans who had been present, from those who had only heard the story, all marveling at a single act of generosity that had united 18,500 hearts in a fleeting but unforgettable moment. The teen, once anonymous in the crowded aisles, became a symbol of hope and possibility. He later donated the Gibson J200 to a local music foundation, ensuring that the generosity he had received would ripple outward, inspiring other young musicians to dream, practice, and believe. The Colosseum itself commemorated the night with a small plaque near the main entrance. Elvis Presley, Tulsa, November 22nd, 1974. A moment of kindness, remembered forever. Visitors traced their fingers along its bronze surface, reading the engraved names and dates, feeling the connection between past and present. Local newspapers chronicled the story with reverent attention. The Tulsa Times published on November 23rd, Elvis made 18,500. Hearts beat together, capturing not just the spectacle of the evening, but the humanity at its core. Even decades later, fan clubs and music historians referenced the night as a defining example of the King's ability to merge performance with empathy. The story was shared at concerts, in interviews, and in documentaries, cementing a narrative of compassion that transcended mere celebrity. Side characters remembered vividly. Tommy Hayes recounted the scene in a 1982 interview, describing the tremor of tension before Elvis extended the guitar, and Lenny Carter often told young roadies about the power of quiet observation, seeing the human need beneath the spectacle. Each artifact, from the tattered notebook to the signed setlist, became symbolic of the bridge between fame and humility. Performance and heart. Can one unexpected act truly change a city's spirit? How often do moments of compassion create ripples that outlast the event itself? Even today, fans debate the identity of the teenager, speculating who he became, what music he made, and how that single moment shaped his life. The collective memory of Tulsa remembers not just the music or the concert, but the generosity that redefined what it meant to be a legend. The ripple effect extended beyond the teen, inspiring new generations, influencing music programs, and reminding audiences that fame is most profound when shared. And as decades passed, one question endured: what happens when generosity meets opportunity in front of thousands of witnesses? Elvis's gesture that night was more than a concert highlight. It was a lesson in humanity. Fame and talent reached their highest purpose when shared, bridging divides, lifting spirits, and inspiring courage. The teen, the crowd, and the thousands who later heard the story witnessed that generosity could reverberate beyond a single moment. Music became a conduit for empathy, and a small act created ripples far larger than anyone could anticipate. In the end, the King's legacy was measured not just in hits, but in hearts touched and lives quietly transformed. Share this story with someone who believes small gestures can ripple into legendary moments. Ask yourself, who in your life needs a hand today? And remember, true impact often comes from the courage to give, even when all eyes are watching.